Well, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending upon where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, moderator for today's event, and I welcome you. As always, we have a great webinar on tap, but before we get started, we do have a few housekeeping items we need to go over. First of all, today's event is being recorded, so if you miss any or all of the event, you will have the opportunity to access it later on. Following today's webinar, we will be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And we are taking questions from the audience. So if at any time during today's presentation you have a question for our speaker, please don't wait, don't hesitate, just use your GoToWebinar control panel and submit your questions, and we'll get to as many audience questions as we can before the end of today's webinar. Also, at the end of today's webinar, we will be doing a drawing for two $50 Amazon gift cards, so please stick around. Hopefully you'll be one of our big winners. All right, with that, we will kick off today's webinar, which is an open source DevSecOps platform for securing code and dependencies. Our speaker today is Prabhu Subramanian, who is the creator of ShiftLeft Scan and architect at ShiftLeft. Thank you so much for joining me, Prabhu. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Charlene, for inviting me, and thanks everyone for joining this webinar.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and put myself on mute, let you get right to your presentation.
Thank you. So, thank you for joining. So this was supposed to be a day we announced ShiftLeft Scan to the whole world, kind of like how Apple or Microsoft would do a large announcement, but it turns out open source projects cannot get massive funding like these companies do. So so the next big thing is doing a webinar with DevOps.com, which is what I'm doing right now. And I actually wanted to do slightly different here. So to be honest, Charlene, the webinar really started last week. So I had emailed questions from a number of participants and was chatting with them over the weekend, and a lot of interesting questions came out. And questions such as, hey, how do I even transition to DevSecOps? This is the first time I'm hearing this. How do I sell this concept? How do I get the buy-in from my organization, right? So those sort of questions. And questions like, do you support a specific language like Python, or do you support embedded C, C++, or .NET? So those sort of questions. And I've kind of captured, highlighted the questions and tried to make them bold depending on how many people asked, and so on. And before answering these questions and before telling about the product, I felt like maybe I should start describing why I built the product, what is the problem I was trying to solve, and maybe that would kind of make it easy to understand the product, the platform, and then yeah, we can see about the questions in general. So the first challenge is this DevSecOps is so new that it is not putting DevSecOps together. That's not the formula. That's not how it works. The problem currently with both the security vendors and cloud vendors and the leaders pushing DevSecOps program is there's no consensus in terms of what a DevSecOps really stands for. So what is happening is we have a push from the traditional security vendors who are so used to selling pen testing product, security assurance product that's certified after you delivered the software, suddenly leveraging this DevSecOps buzzword, DevSecOps keyword, and trying to sell this exact same software, exact same platform as a DevSecOps product. So what happens is people who are used to like a DevOps, a cloud native way of working, when they try to use security as part of their dev workflow, they find that because the tools doesn't suit that kind of a workflow, they have to change their whole workflow to suit the tools, not the other way around. So ideally, you would expect the tools to be compatible with the workflow you follow, whether it is the way you develop software, the way you test software or release software, and so on, right? So there was a lot of confusion, and before building Scan, I was doing a bunch of DevSecOps consulting, and I really found that the products were not catering to the needs of the market, and the only way to solve this is to actually produce a better software, a better platform from scratch that understood the needs of the DevOps people, the needs of the DevSecOps program. And the second way I had to really rethink about the role of security tools is this competition versus collaboration, right? So again, the whole security vendor marketplace is like full of competition. So every security vendor, every security platform, even cloud platform, they want to retain the customers. They want to keep the customers to themselves. So the way the market does it is to produce lock-ins. So if you go ahead and implement a software to perform static analysis, that data cannot be used by another software that does static analysis or another software that does, say, dependency or container scanning. So the data will become siloed into the product, into the platform that you use. And sometimes it's crazy that even if you buy the products from the same vendor, so you buy a static analysis product from the vendor, and you buy the open source scanner and a container scanner from the same vendor, because these three products are built by three separate teams with three different roadmaps, again, the chances of them talking to each other were quite narrow, right? And the customers would end up paying for these lack of integration. So in a sense, the customers then have to do manual API-based integration or CLI-based integration to put all these information together to identify a meaningful insight out of them. So most of the DevSecOps failure case studies, when you try to investigate, you find that the program failed sometimes because the tools actually caused the program to fail, not that it was the fault of the people or the process. And I strongly believe that security is better together. So the security tools should collaborate. The reports, everything should be compatible with each other, and so on. So I have a lot of exciting news on those points. I would try to capture as we go. And by the way, if you have any questions, you can feel free to post it on the chat window. I will keep checking, and I can try to answer them as I go through the slides, so that it doesn't have to be just me speaking here. So based on those 2 points, if we look at what is Scan, what motivated myself and my team at ShiftLeft to build Scan. So we wanted Scan to be the universal security scanner. We were tired of using scanners for different languages, different frameworks, different purposes, that we wanted to build that universal layer that abstracts the security scanning process. Apologies, I thought it was a question. So we wanted to abstract away this concept of scan that is independent of language, independent of process, independent of technology, that we had to literally start from scratch and make the whole platform open source so that we can get good adoption, good interop across platforms. The second point is this Scan product is purpose built for workflow integration. So I have a slide on workflow and integrations and so on, but in the very fact that people are changing their workflow to suit the products is incorrect. Whereas with Scan, no changes to the current workflow is needed at all to use security. Security can be embedded into existing workflow, whether it is as part of the IDE, as part of the GitHub commits, or as part of the CI build release pipelines. So no changes to workflow is required because of Scan. But of course, we can guide if the workflow needs tuning, if the workflow needs investigation. Obviously, as a security consultants, we can definitely help the clients improve and so on. And lastly, it's completely free and open source. So I will share the link to Scan on GitHub. Anybody can go feel free to investigate, take a look at the source code, use it. There's like no commercial license required, no catch actually. Somebody asked me, is it legit? Is it really you're giving away this security platform for free? And I said, yeah, it is free, open source. You don't even have to doubt me. It is out there on GitHub. So Scan, completely free and open source. If there are no questions, maybe I can let me quickly check. Okay, so I can quickly now go to a demo, and then I will keep checking the chat pop-up as I hear anything from the audience. So what I have here is to start with Scan working on Azure pipelines. I saw the survey and I found that Azure, for example, was ranked, I think, the second highest or something. The first was obviously Jenkins, which we know is the most used CI/CD pipelines. And so maybe I thought I will start with Azure pipelines, and then I can slowly show Scan working on other pipelines. So as you can see, I have a demo organizations with a bunch of pipelines connected with Scan. If I start with a sample project here, this is the Scan console output log, output experience. So if we start bottom up, it says the tool and the number of critical, high, medium, low vulnerabilities. So we have the class file analyzer, which is pointing to a number of critical and high vulnerabilities. And this is the scan summary from the dependency scanner. And you have the dependency scan results listing all of the CVEs identified in the dependencies. And obviously, this is how the console output starts. So basically, like I said, if you take a typical DevSecOps workflow where the workflow starts from the coding part, so with Scan, we security scan each and every step in the workflow, each and every step in the life cycle. So for the code, we can do credential scanning, look at any secrets being leaked in the source code. We can do dependency scanning there. We can look at what packages are being imported, what packages are being used in the source code. We can then go look up for known vulnerabilities, known CVEs. We can then do a best-in-class static analysis, security testing on the source code. So we can then identify security weaknesses that are possible, not only because of the open source dependencies, but also because of any custom logic, custom flaw in the source code that might happen. And we can do all of these security tests in just one single scan. And most of the time, you would find that Scan actually performs all of the scan in like 3 minutes. The maximum I found was for WebGoat project, which is like a massive project, nearly 1 million lines of code. It took like 10 minutes. And the next best industrial competitor, it is like over 30 minutes. And it could be sometimes as high as a couple of hours, because that commercial competitor charges based on the number of concurrent scanning you can perform, and not every commercial scanner offers unlimited scanning. So sometimes your scans are getting queued up. So as you can see, Scan is not only for security, it is also quite fast. So it's both fast and security. So you don't have to compromise on speed. And the chances of Scan getting adopted as part of a DevOps process, DevSecOps process, is far higher, because one of the primary reason developers hate security tool is speed, right? Like nobody wants to wait for the security tool results to come back and tell them what needs fixing, and so on, isn't it? So Scan is right there in terms of performance, and obviously with community's help, we can fine tune this, we can make it go much further than this. With Azure, we then took this experience a bit further, like viewing reports in the build logs as part of the console logs is cool, right? Like you see all of these reports in one place. You don't have to go to different websites, different tabs to see the reports and put them together and to know whether the build passed or failed or so on. But we also make it easy to visualize the report. So we have an extension called ShiftLeft Scan. It is absolutely free. It is also open source. You can click and install this extension with literally one click. There's no configuration required. And what this extension does is automatically takes that console-based reports and then presents them in a manner that's very easy to understand. For example, here it says issues were found in this run, and it clearly tells about the repository, the branch, and the commit it scanned, and it also talks about the tool it used, and very good summary with a chart that security analysts, product owners can easily refer to understand the security posture, right? And then some easy recommendation. And what we also do is we highlight top issues that needs fixing. Like obviously not all of the issues needs fixing all of the time. So we do some clever things here to make it easy to manage the vulnerabilities, which is another big issue in the industry, isn't it? So the reason you're seeing multiple tabs here is Scan is also a multi-scanner. So we scan the same language, same framework using multiple scanners, and we try to analyze and identify issues that is not typically possible with one mode of scanning. For example, in this Java project, we scan the source code with both the compiled form of the language as well as the raw form of the language. And then we try to use the knowledge that our scanners produce in this multiple mode to better filter false positives to improve the quality. Again, all of these components are open source. People can go take a look at how we streamline, how we make the results cross-verified, so that it has less false positives and so on. If we now look at dependency scan results, so this uses a package that I wrote from scratch. It's called DevScan, and what this dependency scanner does is it also works very closely with the static analysis scanner to identify the dependencies that are really being used in the source code. So if you think about dependencies, we can add open source dependencies and other project dependencies via pom.xml or package.json and so on, right? So different languages have different ways of including the dependencies. But over time, what is possible is some of these included dependencies are not really being used at all, or we might have included a dependency, but there could be a vulnerability in one of the indirect dependency from this direct dependency, right? So there could be multiple ways of thinking about open source vulnerabilities. With DevScan, because it has the knowledge of the dependency includes how the dependencies are being used in the source code, it can firstly filter out dependencies that are not being directly included. Or for dependencies that are directly being included, it can also go through the indirect dependencies and it can adjust its findings, its weightage accordingly. So there is an industry term for this. This is called prioritized software composition analysis, and it's like an expensive feature. Again, DevScan can do parts of it for absolutely free, and it's open source. So DevScan is one of the best open source tool in the market right now. And we didn't stop at DevScan. We also implemented a license compliance status which is given an open source package, we then go and look at the license clause of the package, and then we can highlight packages with license conditions that are not commercially favorable, and so on. This is not a vulnerability, but in some industries, some release model, it is essential to know what the packages are that's getting bundled up, the whole software bill of materials, it's called. So license check is part of DevScan, again, part of Scan, completely free. So this is Scan working on Azure pipeline, very seamless, completely automatic. The results on the console gets presented as tabs, and it can completely integrated with the pipeline, so you don't have to go checking for the results for the pipeline because it's already there. I would like to now show you the experience on GitHub side, right? So on GitHub, so we have a action called ShiftLeft Scan, completely free, open source. Again, I think I'll be repeating these two words. So you'll get the same similar console experience, static analysis reports appearing in the console log, and okay, so I have a question about comparison with Sonar Cube. Is it like Sonar Cube? Yes and no. So Sonar Cube is a static analysis, but they are more focused on linting, whereas Scan is more focused on security scanning. It is possible to integrate certain plugins to do what Sonar Cube does. But some of those plugins, so some of the static analysis tools do not work very well as Sonar Cube plugins. So there is some limitations there. Whereas with Scan, the architecture we went for makes it very easy to use multiple tools, perform multiple analysis, and filter out false positive. So we believe Scan is a new platform, new offering, which is which will one day be like Sonar Cube with community support. And does this product include container scan? Not yet, but that's one of the thing I would love to implement and would like to work on. So if I can quickly scroll and show you, so very similar experience. You can see the reports on the console and so on. But can we do better on GitHub? Yes, of course we can do better on GitHub. So I'm happy to announce that we've been working together with GitHub to integrate Scan natively into GitHub. No complicated setup required, no commercial license required. Very soon, I think in 2 weeks' time, any GitHub user will be able to go to the security tab, and they will be able to see code scanning alerts as a tab. And they can click that, and they will see ShiftLeft scans here. If they don't see it here, it'll be a very easy one-click setup to integrate ShiftLeft scan onto GitHub. I would love to show a demo, but I've been told I can't. So yes, so this is something that's coming up very shortly. You'll have a great scan experience natively integrated with GitHub. Absolutely free. And so this is GitLab. GitLab, again, very similar console experience. We do not have any partnership yet, but we would love to explore ways of improving this reporting with GitLab, make it more useful and actionable for GitLab users as well. And lastly, not the least, this is Scan on cloud build, right? So far, I showed a lot of integration points, how Scan works with extension, with various pipelines, with all these cloud platforms. So surely this should have taken us a lot of time to integrate. Like surely my team would have worked very hard to do all these integrations, right? But no, it's actually very easy to integrate Scan. So I have the docs site here. So let me start with GitLab for example, right? As you can see, it's literally 3 or 4 lines of code to integrate scan. You don't even have to know more than the word scan to integrate scan into any pipeline. The way we believe is customers should not do the work of the security vendor, right? The security vendor should look at all the CI tools in the market, all the IDEs, all the pipelines, various combinations of workflow, and the software should take care of all of those things so that the customers doesn't have to do the work of configuration, like how do I take this report, this JSON from here, and how do I then merge it with this JSON, this XML from this tool? No, right? So a single word scan is enough to do credential scanning, dependency scanning, static analysis, any language, any many languages, many frameworks. So we have the doc site here. One of the things we used to do internally at ShiftLeft is like who can produce the most shortest configuration for a given pipeline. I think my team has done a wonderful job here. So if you look at Azure DevOps, we have an extension which is one-click install, but if customers want to use scan without extensions, they can still use this configuration, and we're working hard to improve the documentation for all of the CI, all of the platforms out there. So it is also open source, so please feel free to contribute any suggestions. And so this is Scan working on CI/CD platforms, right? I think what I would do is I would also show you another cool thing, and then maybe we can then come back to the slides. So the company name is ShiftLeft. Obviously, CI is not left yet, isn't it? Because the leftmost part of the dev workflow starts from code, right? How do you code? How do you think about code? How do you write code? So I'm happy to show you ShiftLeft working as an extension on Visual Studio Code. So ShiftLeft extension for VS Code is again free, open source. You can go to this extensions tab and install ShiftLeft Scan like how I have done. It'll show up like this. What this extension does is makes security scan like it is literally the easiest security scan you could use. So people in my industry talk about one-click scanning, one-touch scanning, right? That's like a buzzword, right? So this is literally one-click scanning. In fact, my laptop has a touch screen, so I can touch that button now. So what I'm going to do is take the biggest risk, which is a live demo in a webinar with a lot of audience, and yeah, guess what? Okay, it's going to work. I'm feeling very confident, right? So you click the button, and it is the same scanning tool that works on all these CI pipelines, all these cloud platforms, then detects that it is being operated as part of an IDE, as part of this VS Code extension. And you saw how fast it is, like so I was able to click the button, wait for the results to come back, and these are live security test results. There's like no faking, no mocking up here. So this scanned this whole application called Hello ShiftLeft, which is a Java application, and it presents the results here. So you can see the description about the results, the severity and the kind. There's some help URLs here, and there's some metadata here. And we make very good use of Visual Studio. So this is a proper dev experience where when you highlight the line on the source code, you can learn more about the vulnerability. So this is like, as you code, you do security scan, and you basically developers can implement code in a secure manner. So secure code development. This extension is also absolutely free, no commercial license required, one of the best. We again support a broad range of languages, very easy to use. You just have to install, and there's no configuration required and so on. And like I said, there is some some interesting UI specific features we have put where we make it easy to navigate to the vulnerabilities and so on. I'm sure with more people like you using, I think we'll have good feedback and good roadmap to improve this software further. So let me quickly check the tab and okay, there have been few hand raises, but I would love to finish the presentation and then take answers in the next 5 minutes because I don't have much slides anyway. So if we go back to the presentation again, so that's a demo of ShiftLeft Scan. I showed from the CA onwards the broad range of support we have got on the CA platform, CD platforms. I also showed how easy it is to configure a pipeline to use scan to perform scanning. We have a lot of examples. All of the integrations I showed are available publicly, so you can see the workflow file, the configuration, and so on. And we also have a best-in-class VS Code extension that would allow developers to use scan, perform security scanning, and so on. So we try to visualize all of the integrations. So these are the integrations we have at the moment. And for the CI pipelines that is not in this list, for example, AWS code build, most of the existing configurations can be tweaked slightly and then they can be reused. So if somebody comes up with an example, working example for AWS or something, please send us a pull request and I would be happy to update the docs. So this is integrations, and I don't want to take any more time, so I want to jump into the Q&A directly.
Okay, we've gotten some great questions in so far, but there is plenty of time for questions. So if you have a question for Prabhu, please go ahead and use your GoToWebinar control panel and submit your question, and we will get right into them. Okay, here, let's see, here's the first question, if I can get to it here. Okay, which open source, hold on. Sorry, which open source SAST scanning engines do you choose for major programming languages like Java, JavaScript, Python, and Go, and why did you choose them?
It is a good question. So there are a number of open source scanning engines, but the number of long tail scanning engines in open source is quite high. By long tail, what I mean is the scanning engines that primarily use only string pattern matching and or some fancy irregular expressions to pinpoint security issues are actually not that great. So I had to do a level of filtering when I picked the scanners. So for Java, I went for FindSecBugs and PMD, two great open source projects, and I had to make them work together, improve the rules. So these scanners have a generic set of rules, and then you can obviously customize them and so on. So I had to put some work to make the rules optimized, and then my ShiftLeft team, my team at ShiftLeft again helped me with testing the combination and improving it further and so on. And with community support, obviously we can do much better for Java. For Golang, I used a different tool called GoSec, which uses AST, which is abstract syntax trees. AST is one way of analyzing source code. There's like a lot of other ways, and so on. So in the SAST scan repo on the README, we have listed all the tools that's being used and how they are configured and so on. So in most of the time, we actually use this tool and then we customize the rules we configure, and then I normalize the report so that all of the reports become standardized. So there is an industry agreed format called SARIF, which is static analysis reporting interchange format. And the format is from Microsoft, and currently ShiftLeft and Microsoft and GitHub are some of the major players which is supporting and working on this format. And I believe when talking about universal scanner and tools should work together, so these are the things I believe the vendor should do. So technically, it could be argued that Scan competes with some product from Microsoft or some product from GitHub themselves, right? But we then partner up. We try to solve the common problem, which is DevSecOps, isn't it? How do we make security more integrated, more embedded into the dev, into the ops process, that security doesn't look like an add-on, like something that's glued up from the outside, isn't it? And I believe partnerships, collaborations, things like SARIF are the way to do. I hope I have answered that question.
Okay, great. Next question here. Your website claims it works for Apex code. So what tools do you use?
Yeah, for Apex, I think the major tool is PMD, and then obviously customized based on Salesforce specific rules and so on.
All right, great. Plenty of time for questions, guys. So if you do have one, please go ahead and use your GoToWebinar control panel. Our next question here, how do you integrate with Kubernetes?
Okay, it is a great question. So we can do Kubernetes scanning as a static analysis step. So we can look at the Kubernetes configuration file. We can look at the Terraform configuration file, identify any specific issues in the way the containers are configured, the clusters and other resources are configured, and so on. So Scan supports static analysis based scanning. In terms of how you then scan the containers and the clusters, so we need a container scanning product. So the need for a good container scanning product is clear. There are a number of container scanners in the market. There are good open source ones. There are good commercial ones. But where I feel the gap is none of these container scanners actually work with SAST and dependency scanners. And the container scanner we are working at ShiftLeft will be again integrated like Scan. It'll make use of the information that is found by the static analysis tool to then scan the container. So it'll go either deep or broad depending on the information from static analysis and dependency scanning results. So we are working on an exciting new container scanner product. So I feel that is how the customers will be able to scan Kubernetes or OpenShift or any other Kubernetes-based platform in the future. But currently we don't have anything open source yet.
Okay. All right, great. Next question. Does the scan policy let break builds based on conditions such as more than X high severity findings?
That's correct. So there is a built-in build break logic. That's why you see the builds being marked as failure and so on. And it is very easy to customize and configure the rules per repo based on a JSON file, and it's documented in our documentation site.
All right, great. Lots of great questions here. Let's see, next one. Does this include a Wasp dependency check?
It is a great question, actually. I'm glad you asked. So I used to contribute to dependency check, and dependency check is like a great tool, right? Like I've used it for like over 8 years now, and I found that dependency check had become a bit slow, bit bloated over the years, and some of the steps the Wasp project took with dependency check made it kind of very slow, very difficult to use with DevOps, with DevSecOps workflow. So my very first iteration of Scan indeed used dependency check, and then I was like, okay, I think I have to write a new dependency scanner from scratch. So Scan now uses DevScan, which is my dependency scanner, which I wrote it in Python from scratch. It does a lot of clever things to optimize the speed. For example, dependency scanner uses XML and number of legacy technologies, whereas with Scan I went for much more modern technologies like message pack and so on. And it is built for speed. That's why you saw that all of the scans, including dependency scanning, takes less than 3 minutes, whereas dependency check alone would have taken 3 minutes or more for each build. And because DevScan is new, there is now opportunity to do a lot of interesting things, a lot of interesting combinations, like using the result of dependency scan in the static analysis and possibly in the runtime analysis and so on. So there are like a lot of use cases that is possible with DevScan, which is simply not possible with dependency check. But like I said, yeah, dependency check is a great product. There are lots of pipelines out there that uses dependency check, but users of those pipelines, if they are looking for any modern replacement, I would highly recommend Scan and DevScan.
All right. Great. Next question. Are you using CVSS version 2 or version 3?
I'm using version 3, but there is a lot of interesting bits here. So on CBS version 3, so we are given a score, but that score is determined by looking just at that particular vulnerability, that CVE in isolation. Whereas I believe we need to look at the whole life cycle, the whole workflow. If the particular source code is being used as part of a container, which is then used inside a Kubernetes, maybe we don't need to worry too much about a score provided by CBSS. So I'm thinking a lot about how we can look at the whole risk end to end and do a proper risk assessment. Currently, the DevScan uses the same CBSS score that is in version 3, but this will very soon change. And if you want to keep an eye on such changes, the best place is the GitHub issue for the SAST scan, or blog.shiftleft.io, which is where I have started documenting a number of thoughts and started describing the problem with CBSS version 3, version 2, and how we can streamline risk assessments and so on.
Excellent. All right, next question. How do we know that Scan is reliable? Are there any benchmarks to compare?
Sure. So there is, interestingly, there's not many benchmarks. There's Wasp benchmark. And I tested Scan with Wasp benchmark. It is very easy to test. I've even documented the steps to test Scan against the benchmark. And I can tell you that Scan is currently the #1 open source scanner in the market, and it even was outperforming some of the commercial scanners in the market. Having said that, there is a small flaw with Wasp benchmark. In a sense, they only support one result, and it is not possible to resubmit the result after you improve your software. So I got a benchmark result, and then I found lots of areas where Scan could be improved. And when I tried to submit the results back, the project didn't accept. So it is quite possible that some of the commercial players might have tuned, optimized their product over time, and so on. But the nature of Scan is it is free and open source. So absolutely go have a play with these links. I think somebody has kindly shared the links on the chat window. So go play with the source code, perform your own scans, mix Scan with other tools, try to understand where Scan is performing, where Scan needs optimization, and so on. And yeah, please send the results, please send the findings via GitHub or directly to me, and then yeah, we can keep improving the product.
Awesome. All right, great. Okay, we are at about quarter to the top of the hour. We have plenty of time for questions. So, and we've got a lot in, but if you do have a question for Prabhu, please don't hesitate. Just use your GoToWebinar control panel and submit the question. And speaking of questions, here's our next one. What standard are you following when developing this tooling? Are you integrated into vulnerability systems?
So we use scan to test scan. So if you go to GitHub ShiftLeft Security /SAST scan and then go to the Actions tab, you will see the scan results for scan. So whatever philosophy I'm preaching, the DevSecOps philosophy, the ability to test as you code, which is exactly what we follow. So we run scans on VS Code while we write code. And then the pipelines are configured to run all the scans. The pipelines fail if a scan fails. So exactly same thing. So if scan takes a lot of time to scan a pull request, that means we are not able to deliver features faster. And it is not just scan, it is the whole ShiftLeft as a company built around the vision that we should be using our own product, and we should be eating your own dog food, maybe not a right set of phrase, but we believe that we are the first users of our product, of our processes, and then we optimize it before we give it to our clients, whether it is open source or commercial.
Excellent. All right. Next question. Can we use this to scan our cloud instances in AWS?
This is not a endpoint scanning software. This is on the static analysis side. So more suitable use cases are scanning your source code, scanning your open source dependencies, and so on. I think there are other wonderful tools, like there's a tool called Scout, which is for scanning AWS infrastructure and so on. So more suitable. But in terms of scanning, I feel that scanning the source code is easier, cheaper than scanning a post deployment, because if we don't identify the vulnerabilities as you code, it is kind of too late, because the changes and the vulnerabilities have already gone into the cloud. So we then have to do expensive penetration test, expensive cloud monitoring to identify issues that we could have identified as we built the code. So this is shift left. So we need to really think about moving security completely embedded into the workflow as much to the left as possible. And the scanning of the network, scanning of the infrastructure is great from a compliance, from a peace of mind perspective, but that can't be the only security thing.
All right. Great. Okay, next question. How are the secrets or passwords scanned?
Okay, so yeah, so we have a best-in-class secret scanning engine, right? So we can scan secrets in the source code in the configuration file. We also scan for secrets in the commit messages, in the Git diffs, and so on. So we actually do a thorough secret scanning as part of scan. I might have uploaded a video or two on YouTube showing ShiftLeft Scan doing credential scan. If not, I can send across the link. So it is an interesting product, and we do a thorough analysis. As you code, we check the source code for any secrets and so on. The issue with secrets is sometimes the strings might look like a secret, but not really a secret. For example, with Kubernetes, it is quite possible to use password equal to password, for example, where the value password will be injected in the container via a secret map or via a key vault. So we kind of do some filtering. We kind of optimize the secret detection logic to filter out such obvious false positives. There could be still false positives, but the nature of open source means we can keep optimizing keep tuning it. And also it is possible to override the default scan rules of scan. So it is possible to add a configuration file per repo and then make scan use that configuration file for the different scanning tools. So yeah.
All right, great. Next question, do we host this or is it a SaaS-like service?
Okay, so scan is runs as part of your CI build. So there is no SaaS offering, no cloud provider required. So when you include the configuration, all of the scanning tools get downloaded as a single container image, Docker image, and all of the scans are performed locally within the CI system itself. So no source code, no secrets, no configuration leaves your CI build environment. The entire scanning is done locally. The results are presented locally. So that's how scan works. Completely local scanning, completely in the build server itself.
All right, great. Next question, does it scan a single file or does it have to be the entire repo?
I think it's a good improvement request. Something I've thought about in the past. Currently, it scans the entire repo, entire application. It is tempting to add a way of scanning a single file, but it's most of the time it is meaningless because a change made in one file could actually cause a vulnerability in a completely different file or a completely different configuration file and so on. So it is very difficult to implement a proper security scanning tool and provide a very high quality result by just scanning one file. So I took a conscious decision to always scan the entire application. And like I demoed it, most of the time it's only few seconds, and the scans can run in the background without blocking the work. And yeah, it's been absolutely fine actually.
Okay, great. I think we have time for one or two more questions here before we close things out. So let's see, how easy is it to extend the tool? Let's say I want to scan for code issues in anticipation of migrating the app to a cloud-native platform like Kubernetes. Is that easy to build the extension?
How to add a new scanning engine, isn't it? It is relatively easier. I have not done a good job documenting the steps. Maybe maybe that's an enhancement I could make. It is possible to extend scan, add more scanners, more plugins, and do it, because that's how myself and my team have been able to add a lot of scanners in a short time. So yeah, it is currently not documented very well, but very happy to work on it and enhance it.
Okay, great. So let's keep rolling along here. Does the VS Code extension work with any language extension?
So it supports all the languages scan support. For example, Java, Python, JavaScript, Node.js, and like Terraform. So if you go to the SAST Scan GitHub page, we have a long list of various languages we support. So we currently have all of the scanners bundled as our own container image. So we don't really need any language runtimes. So even if you do not have any other extensions installed, like Java language server or JavaScript language server, scan can still work independent of any other extensions. So, and it was a conscious decision to bundle up all of the libraries, all of the packages required for a security scan, and that's why we were able to support CI pipelines, VS Code, yeah, whatever you name it.
Okay, all right. I think this is going to be the last question here. Are you on the CNCF roadmap for static code analysis scanning tools?
No, surprisingly not. Actually, didn't think about CNCF. Maybe yeah, I would go check it out. And thanks for that. Thanks for the tip.
All right, great. Let's see if we can sneak in one more question here. Let's see. How much coverage or detection of the theoretical population of issues?
Oh wow, it's a big philosophical question, isn't it?
Right.
So it is very hard to go 100% because 100% is essentially we are slowing down all of the work. We are stopping every single person, and it's that's not possible. With the Wasp benchmark, I think it was around 43%, which was one of the highest percentage. Our ShiftLeft inspectors, of course, 72%. It's a commercial platform. It's a lot higher than what Scan can do with open source. So I would argue that something around 75% is the ideal, because 100% is anything over 80%. That 20% would take 80% of the time. Nobody wants to dedicate that much of time for security, isn't it? So there is a sweet spot. I think Scan is very optimized for teams that are beginning to think about DevSecOps, that want to introduce security scanning as part of their pipeline, and they have a constraint around budget, constraint around people who can run it, maintain it, and so on. So the target and the sweet spot is around there. Obviously, teams, once they mature, they can start thinking about a more advanced platform like Inspect, which is the commercial platform we offer, or any other suitable DevSecOps platform as they mature, that gives them a much more capable compliance capability, auditing capability, and so on. So yeah, that's the sweet spot I'm trying to target with Scan.
All right, great. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for the question and answer period. I do want to thank everybody who did submit questions. And if you did not get your question answered, please know that the folks at ShiftLeft are going to get a copy of all of the questions. And also just want to remind the audience that Prabhu does host a weekly office hour webinar. They're totally question and answer, what is it, like an hour long, Prabhu? Something
That's
like
right.
that?
That's
And it's
right.
all question and answer, so you can always pose your question there. The first one is actually going to be next Tuesday, May 8th, May 5th, haha, Cinco de Mayo. And the link to register is in the chat, so you can always go check it out there and get signed up for that webinar. And I also want to remind the audience that today's event has been recorded. So if you missed any or all of the event, or if you just want to watch it again, you will have the opportunity to do so. After today's webinar, we will be sending out an email that contains a link to access the webinar on demand. And the webinar is also going to be living on the DevOps.com website. You can always go there. Just go to DevOps.com/webinar. Look in the on-demand section, and it should be right there waiting for you. Okay, last thing before we close it out. I know at the top of the hour I did mention a drawing for two $50 Amazon gift cards. So without further ado, let's go ahead and do that. Our first winner today is Gilbert B. Congratulations, Gilbert. And our second winner today is Joe G. Congratulations, Joe. We'll be following up with both of you offline via email to get your $50 Amazon gift card over to you. Prabhu, thank you so much for such a great presentation. Judging from the amount of questions we got, very well received by the audience.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining today.
Yes, I do want to thank the audience also for joining me today. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, and I am signing off. Have a great day, everybody.